And try and not get in anybody's way.
Don't worry, Skipper. I'll do a real good job.
It looked like paradise. Palm trees swayed in the tropical breeze. The ocean sparkled under endless sunshine. And 7 stranded castaways tried, week after week, to get off their tiny island. For millions of viewers in the mid-1960s, Gilligan's Island was pure escapism. A half-hour break from the real world filled with goofy mishaps, slapstick humor, and an unforgettable theme song. But peel back the palm fronds, and you'll find a story far more complicated than what aired on CBS. This was a production full of tension, accidents, bizarre fan reactions, and some of the strangest behind-the-scenes decisions in television history. Because the truth is, Gilligan's Island wasn't even filmed on an island. It wasn't even filmed near an ocean. And sometimes reality got uncomfortably close to fiction, like the time the cast actually became stranded at sea. Today, we're diving deep into the real story behind America's most famous castaways, from feuds and broken bones, to network politics that ended the show without warning, to fan confusion so intense the Coast Guard had to step in. The lagoon that fooled America. If you'd never seen the set in person, you'd swear the show was filmed in Hawaii or somewhere deep in the South Pacific. But the island that fooled millions of Americans every week was actually a carefully built set on the CBS lot in Studio City, California, tucked right behind a soundstage. The lagoon was a man-made pool filled with dyed water and surrounded by imported palm trees. Fake birds chirped through hidden speakers. Careful camera angles blocked the view of nearby parking lots and sound stages. It was one of television's greatest illusions. But the magic had its downsides. The water was often freezing, especially during early morning shoots. The actors had to pretend they were basking in tropical heat while their teeth chattered. And the chemicals used to keep the water clean sometimes made cast members nauseous. Wind wasn't the only thing the production crew had to battle at the lagoon. Because the set was outdoors and right in the middle of Los Angeles, it became an uninvited gathering place for all sorts of curious visitors, both human and animal. Crew members told stories about stray cats sneaking onto the set to sunbathe on the sand. And once, a large heron landed in the lagoon mid-shoot, stubbornly refusing to leave. The director had to halt filming until the bird finally wandered off, leaving its guest appearance on the cutting room floor. The water itself was another constant headache. That tropical blue color viewers saw on TV, it came from a mix of pool dye and chemicals, and those chemicals didn't just smell strange. They sometimes bleached costumes or irritated the actor's skin. Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann, once joked that her legs were perpetually tropical blue by the end of a shooting week. Because the lagoon was actually a pool, the water level had to be carefully maintained for continuity. A day of filming under the hot California sun could cause evaporation, meaning crew members had to discreetly top it up between takes. On colder days, the opposite problem occurred. Steam would rise off the water, giving away the chilly temperature. Buckets of ice were sometimes added to keep the tropical look consistent. When CBS finally decided to drain the lagoon in the 1990s, they expected to find a bare concrete basin. Instead, workers discovered an odd time capsule, broken prop coconuts, pieces of the minnow, discarded costumes, and even bits of the artificial palm trees. Over the decades, the muck at the bottom had swallowed up pieces of TV history like a miniature sunken treasure hoard. Today, the lagoon spot is just a nondescript parking structure. Visitors walking over it have no idea that they're standing where Gilligan tripped over countless roots, where the skipper hatched half-baked rescue plans, and where generations of viewers imagined an island far, far away. The magic is gone, but in the minds of fans, the lagoon is still shimmering under a perfect tropical sun, untouched by time or bulldozers. The theme song feud. Ask almost anyone to sing the Gilligan's Island theme song, and they'll probably get it word for word. But when Season 1 aired, the lyrics left out 2 of the main characters entirely. In the original version, the song ended with "and the rest," skipping both the Professor and Mary Ann. Russell Johnson and Dawn Wells were furious. They weren't guest stars, they were core members of the cast. The omission wasn't personal. It was a matter of time constraints and network politics. But the slight stung. Bob Denver, Gilligan himself, was so upset that he threatened to stop showing up to work unless the song was rewritten to include everyone's names. It worked. By Season 2, The professor and Mary and were officially part of the lyrics, and they stayed there forever. It's a reminder that sometimes one person standing up, even quietly, can change television history. The star who wanted off the island. Tina Louise, who played glamorous movie star Ginger, wasn't exactly thrilled to be there. She had signed on hoping the show would highlight her character's complexity and fame. Instead, she felt reduced to a one-dimensional punchline. Tina Louise's relationship with Gilligan's Island was complicated from the start. Coming from a background in serious acting and modeling, she had envisioned the role of Ginger Grant as a glamorous showcase, a chance to portray a sophisticated Hollywood starlet with nuance and intrigue. But once filming began, it became clear the show's humor leaned heavily on slapstick and broad comedy, often reducing Ginger to a caricature of vanity and allure. While her co-stars embraced the campy tone, Louise often kept herself apart. Cast members recalled that she rarely lingered for casual banter between takes, preferring to retreat to her dressing room. She sometimes skipped group rehearsals, working on her scenes alone. It wasn't personal animosity, but a growing disconnect. She simply didn't see herself as part of the ensemble's comedic rhythm. Her discomfort spilled into her public appearances, or rather, her lack of them. Louise gave few interviews about the show while it aired, and when she did, she sometimes sidestepped direct questions about Gilligan's antics. Off camera, she worried that being typecast as the glamorous one would close the door on more serious roles. And in her mind, that's exactly what happened. When the original series ended, the rest of the cast would go on to star in reunion movies, animated spin-offs, and TV specials, all except Louise. She turned down every offer to reprise Ginger, forcing producers to recast the role with other actresses. The absence was noticeable, and for fans, it reinforced the mystique around her, the missing castaway who had walked away from the island and never looked back. Yet, despite her distance, Tina Louise's version of Ginger became the definitive one. The glamorous gowns, the perfectly coiffed hair, the sly smiles, they were burned into pop culture memory. Even those who knew nothing about the behind-the-scenes tensions could feel her magnetism on screen. In a way, her reluctance only added to the legend. Ginger Grant wasn't just a character trapped on a deserted island. She was an image, a fantasy, untouchable and just out of reach. And Tina Louise, for better or worse, kept her that way. The skipper's secret injury. Alan Hale Jr. wasn't just the skipper when the cameras were rolling. He carried that same sense of responsibility when they weren't. Known for his booming laugh, easygoing charm, and unwavering professionalism, Hale had a reputation for looking out for his castmates and crew. But nothing showcased his dedication quite like the day he broke his arm. It happened during filming for a scene that called for him to climb a coconut tree, a physical bit that played into the skipper's over-the-top antics. Hale lost his grip, tumbled down, and landed hard. The pain was immediate and sharp, but rather than alert the director or call for a medic, he quietly brushed himself off and went back to work. The next morning, with his arm still throbbing, he showed up on set as if nothing had happened. Hale feared that if he admitted to being injured, production might shut down, leaving the crew without work and a paycheck. For him, that was unacceptable. Costume designers quickly noticed something was off, the way he favored one side, the stiffness in his movements. Without a word, they began adjusting his wardrobe, adding long sleeves and subtly altering the fit of his costume to hide the injury. Camera operators helped too, framing shots so viewers wouldn't notice that the skipper was avoiding certain gestures or using his other arm more than usual. For days, Hale soldiered on, delivering lines with his trademark energy, laughing through scenes, and keeping the set's morale high, even as he worked through the pain. It wasn't until the season wrapped that he finally revealed what had happened. The cast and crew were stunned. The producers later called it one of the most heroic acts they had ever witnessed in television production. It was the kind of grit you rarely see in Hollywood, not for publicity, not for ego, but for the simple reason that he didn't want anyone else to suffer for his accident. On screen, the skipper was a blustery, big-hearted leader. Off-screen, Alan Hale Jr. proved he was exactly the same. A secret Cold War metaphor? On the surface, Gilligan's Island was pure slapstick. But some fans, and even a few pop culture scholars, argue that each character represented a different facet of American society during the Cold War. The skipper, the military; Gilligan, the well-meaning but bumbling public; the professor, science and intellect. Ginger, Hollywood and the pursuit of glamour. Mary and wholesome heartland America. Mr. Howell, big business. Mrs. Howell, inherited wealth. According to this theory, the island itself symbolized America's isolationism, and the castaways' endless failure to escape mirrored a society stuck in its own bubble. Whether intentional or not, the parallels are eerily convincing, and they give the show a surprising depth when viewed through that lens. Fame without fortune. You'd think that starring in one of the most beloved TV shows of the 1960s would set you up for life. Gilligan's Island ran in prime time for 3 seasons, then exploded in popularity through decades of reruns. Afternoon television, Saturday morning marathons, and international broadcasts kept the cast's faces beaming into living rooms long after the final episode aired. But there was one big problem. In the 1960s, most TV contracts didn't include residuals for actors once a show ended its original run. That meant when Gilligan's Island went into syndication and made millions for CBS, the producers and the studio executives, the actors who had actually been Gilligan, the skipper, and the rest of the castaways didn't see a single extra penny. Bob Denver, who played Gilligan, often joked about it. "I see my face on television every single day," he once said, "and I don't get a dime for it." For some cast members, the lack of royalties was more than just an annoyance. It was a real financial blow. Dawn Wells, who played Mary and experienced this firsthand. Decades after the show ended, she faced major medical expenses and turned to crowdfunding to cover the costs. Fans, shocked to learn she hadn't made a fortune from the show, rallied to help. It was a moment that brought the realities of old Hollywood contracts into the public spotlight. For modern actors, the idea of not being paid for endless reruns is almost unthinkable. Residuals are now a standard part of most television deals, and industry insiders point to situations like Gilligan's Island as part of the reason why. The injustice became a cautionary tale taught in entertainment law classes and union meetings. The irony is almost too perfect for a show about castaways. On screen, the characters were trapped on an island, unable to reach the world beyond. Off-screen, the actors were trapped in contracts that kept them from sharing in the riches their work generated for decades. They may not have gotten rich from the show, but they built something even rarer, a legacy that still brings joy to audiences around the world, whether they're watching on a vintage TV set or streaming from the palm of their hand. Dawn Wells later faced medical bills so high she had to crowdfund for help, and fans were stunned to learn the truth about the cast's financial struggles. Their situation became a textbook example of why modern contracts include residuals, the cancellation that shocked everyone. By 1967, CBS had already ordered a 4th season. Ratings were solid. Fans were happy. But then, without warning, Gilligan's Island was canceled. Not because of poor performance, but because of a cowboy show. Gunsmoke had been on the chopping block, but CBS's CEO's wife was a huge fan. When she heard her favorite Western might be canceled, she convinced her husband to keep it on the air. To make room in the schedule, Gilligan's Island got the axe. The cast found out by reading about it in the trades. There was no finale, no send-off, just an abrupt end to the SS Minnow's journey, the darker version that almost happened. In one early draft of the show, the castaways didn't just land on any island. They ended up on a site used for nuclear testing. The island was supposed to have fallout warning signs, ticking Geiger counters, and planes flying overhead. CBS scrapped the idea as too dark for a sitcom, but traces of it remained in the pilot. Early set designs even included barbed wire and bunkers. Had the network kept this direction, Gilligan's Island might have been less about coconut radios and more about radiation poisoning. The real-life war hero. Russell Johnson, the professor, wasn't just acting when he played the smart, resourceful scientist. He had served as a bomber pilot in World War II, survived being shot down over the Philippines, and earned a Purple Heart. On set, Johnson's discipline earned him the nickname One-Take Russ. He memorized complex technical dialogue effortlessly, sometimes tweaking lines to make them scientifically accurate. His calm, steady presence made him the glue that held the cast together. When fiction became reality, during a promotional shoot, CBS rented a small boat to film exterior shots off the California coast. The cast, in full costume, was supposed to be out for just a short time, but thick fog rolled in, and they drifted off course. For several hours, they were genuinely lost at sea, with no communication to shore. Eventually, the Coast Guard found them and were understandably puzzled to see a man dressed as a ship's captain giving orders to a bumbling first mate. Some of the footage from that day made it into the show's opening credits. Fans who tried to rescue them. During the show's original run, the U.S. Coast Guard actually received letters from concerned viewers asking why no one had rescued the castaways. Some fans believed the show was real. A few even sent coordinates they'd calculated based on the fictional setting. The Coast Guard had to issue an official statement assuring the public that Gilligan and his friends were not in danger. Dawn Wells once laughed about being offered a boat ride to get home. Bob Denver claimed a stranger once offered to personally come rescue him at an airport.